So if you're wanting to get into real estate, I'd recommend start with a real estate license, find a mentor, someone in your local area, ideally that's successful as a real estate agent and or broker, and kind of come in under their wing and let them teach you the ropes and start out with a license, because there's two trains of thought on it. A lot of real estate investors try to talk people out of getting their license because of liabilities and disclosures and things like that. If you're an honest person, you shouldn't have a problem disclosing that you're an agent to someone.
So before we get into the interview, just wanted to shout out to our sponsor, Packcrest Botanicals. If you purchase CBD, Delta 8, THCO, or any other cannabinoid, and you are not purchasing from a Libertarian owned and operated company, you need to check out packcrestbotanicals.com. That's PAC crestbotanicals.com. You can use the discount code LLA to save 30%. Give us a try. Check it out. You know, if you're buying from another company that's not Libertarian owned, you have to do yourself a favor. They've got some of the highest quality organic CBD products on the market. So that's packcrestbotanicals.com, discount code LLA. Welcome to the Libertarian Leadership Academy. I'm Michael Pickens, host, and today we have a very exciting guest. Actually, this whole year, I have some really exciting guests lined up. And we're going to be focusing this year on entrepreneurship, personal development, and how it equates to libertarianism. So our first guest of the year is Shannon Dennison. He's an elected libertarian. He's on his third four-year term as Justice of the Peace in Montgomery County, Kentucky. He's also a successful entrepreneur and real estate broker and investor. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me. And wow, such a big honor to be the first guest of the new year here, 2023.
First guest of the new year. You know, one thing that has really excited me is entrepreneurship and personal development both. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a libertarian. And I wanted to talk to you about your journey into entrepreneurship and why it's important to you.
Sure, absolutely. It goes hand in hand, right? It's part of the American dream. It's how our country, I believe, when it was founded, most people owned businesses. And of course, we had jobs back then too. But, you know, the majority of people, I do believe, were entrepreneurs and owned their own business and did the barter and trade thing. And it worked out great, right? And it seemed like at some point government got too big and now it's not working so great. So I think there might be a secret in that or a tip. But entrepreneurship, I couldn't imagine doing anything other than entrepreneurship. I try to think back, you know, when did I know I was an entrepreneur? And it was probably, golly, I must have been, it was before the third grade, because I know the third grade is when I first had like my first introduction to government. And I was selling candy in my third grade class, and my third grade teacher, Mrs. McGuire, came and shut down my candy business. And I was selling fireballs, and she said it was making the kids' mouths hot, and she was getting complaints. So the next day, I just thought she meant I couldn't sell fireballs. So the next day, I brought blow pops or something along those lines and sold those. And she said, "Let me be clear, you can't sell anything." And I said, "Well, golly, that's going to be a hard year for me." So,
man, isn't that crazy? So, you know, I am, you know, the result of government education, publicly funded education, although I didn't do very well in it, but they basically set students up to just go the government route. You go to college, that's it, not to be entrepreneurs, you know, stifling innovation. Obviously, if you have a product that your fellow students want, you should be able to sell it to them, right? As long as it's not heroin.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Common sense applies. But, you know, why wasn't that, why wasn't that promoted, I guess? And it, you know, why do we still to this day not promote entrepreneurship? It's actually, I feel like, looked down on in most cases today. And each year it seems like there's more and more people attacking entrepreneurship, and specifically attacking things like work ethic and pride and things like that, you know, that we gather from being entrepreneurs. You know, I mean, there's nothing better in the world than, you know, providing something, a service that people want and need, and making a thing called profit along the way, and being able to stay home with your family, or being able to travel. You know, for me, I have two daughters, 15 and 18, and been married for a couple decades now. And it's just, you know, I couldn't imagine having to get up every day and go to a job. And when I was in college, I'm not a fan of college. I actually recommend against it now. But the reason I went is it was, I guess let me back up. I lost my father at age 17, my senior year of high school, and he was a graduate of a local university. I say local, about a half hour from where we live. So I received a scholarship there, in part due to my academic, you know, my grades. And one of the scholarships I received was a past alumni scholarship. It was a small part of the big of all the scholarships, but it was a big part of it. And my grandparents, it was very important to them that I went to college. So that's how and why I went to college. I majored in real estate. And my wife, she majored in real estate and finance. So we kind of hit it off. She went to a university about an hour from mine. I met her at a birthday party at a bar, and we've been together ever since. So not saying you should go to bars to meet people, but that's where I met my wife, and it's worked out well for me. But both of my children, I'm trying to kind of bring them down the same road as, of entrepreneurship. It's not as popular, and it really wasn't popular when I was an entrepreneur. I mean, I remember in high school, I had several businesses and faced a tremendous amount of ridicule. Looking back, the ridicule is what kind of, calloused me over, I guess you could say, and made me a strong entrepreneur today. Because as you know yourself, anytime you're in business, people are going to be, you're going to have haters. You're going to have people that look down on you, that talk, that say bad things about you that aren't necessarily true. In most cases, they aren't people that know you. They're just, it's hearsay, or just somebody that's opposed to what you're doing. I think that a lot of people look at successful people, and sometimes they get offended by success because they see what they could have been. And for me, I always looked at successful people, as people having what I wanted. These are people that person did it. Michael was successful. I could be successful too. We really just need one example, and if that example is local, which is very rare. I mean, it's rare that we know somebody locally or have a good friend that's super successful. So typically our mentors, at least our first mentors in life, are typically people that are, don't know us. We don't know them on a personal level. But one of the keys to success that I learned is associating yourself with people who are far, far above where maybe you envision yourself being, and they'll help pull you up. The super successful, the people that have generally made it on their own and didn't inherit it or didn't do something shady, are typically people that are willing to help other people, is what I found out. And you'll find those people, but not everybody that appears to be successful is successful. A lot of people are charging, things on these credit cards, and they're not paying off their balances each month. I think credit cards are awesome if you use them right. I think bank financing is awesome if you use it right. So debt necessarily is not a bad thing. It depends what you're using the debt for. But that third grade lesson I learned, I said, golly, it's going to be a tough road here in this school thing. So I didn't really care a whole lot for school. I did well in it, but I just didn't really, I wasn't a big fan of school. If I had it to do over, I would homeschool, if we have any more children. But
Sure.
My daughter's, one of them is in college. The oldest one, she received some scholarships, and we told her we're not going to pay for college, but if you want to go to college, we will support you, but you're going to have to find a way to pay for it. So she got busy and applied for a lot of different things and was able to receive some scholarships that entirely offset the cost of tuition. We do pay for a meal card there for the meal plan, and provided a vehicle for transportation and gas and things like that. But that's just how adamant I am against it. If you want to go, I'll support you in whatever you want to do, but don't make me pay for it, because it's just not a very good deal, in my opinion. There's so many other things that you can do that don't require an education. And if you do need an education, we have this thing called YouTube and Google that you can hop on, and in a few hours you can kind of learn the gist of whatever it is you want to do, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So touching back to what you just said about, finding mentors or people to look up to, right? Some advice that I got a while ago is that to only take advice from someone in a position that you want to be in, right? So if you're taking advice from a counselor at high school or a college professor where their only career has been in academia, and you're trying to start a business, it might not work very well, right? You want to take advice from people who've been in the position, who are in the position that you want to be in.
It's interesting you say that, because in college, like in the College of Business, a lot of the professors, they may have owned businesses, years ago, but they're not active in business. If they were successful in business, they probably wouldn't be a college professor. So I always thought that was kind of ironic to me. Why I'm in class here being taught how to be a business owner, or business administrator, whatever you want to call it. And I'm being taught by somebody who's, working a job for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. In high school, I took small business management my junior year, and I realized that teacher had never owned a business, and she was just reading out of the book. So I finished the book in 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, well, I'm ready to go. I'm done with this class now. I've read through the entire book. And that's normally what happens in government education, is that you have students that are advanced and they get held back. Instead of being taught to learn on their own, I could have went on to the next step and the next step and the next step, but I wasted the rest of the year in a class that I really didn't learn anything from.
And being uninterested in class or getting failing grades does not have any bearing on whether or not you're going to be successful in life, in my opinion. I know several people from my graduating class, some who graduated, and I think maybe a couple who didn't, that are fairly successful. They have businesses of themselves of their own now and are very passionate about those businesses, and provide a service that lots of people use daily. And so just because someone, if someone's failing in class, I try to talk to like the friends of my daughters a lot, and try to be a positive influence for as many people as I can. And sometimes they'll say, well, I don't do very good in school, and I can already tell that they're kind of planting these seeds that their expectation is that they're not going to do well in life. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. If you don't do good in school, it's in my opinion that it has very little bearing on your success later in life. And there's a lot of people that didn't go to college that are super successful, and they didn't go to college, but today, I'm pretty sure you can learn just about anything online, or you can find people online that'll teach you the things that you want to learn. So mentorship's very important. It's where we all start. And another starting point is, knowing why you're going to inflict all this pain on yourself as an entrepreneur, because it is painful at times, right? Sometimes we have to, work for many hours without rest. Sometimes we have to sacrifice things. We can't be everywhere at the same time, etc. But you have to have these things called goals. And that was a very important part of where I'm at in life, got me here because of my goals. And you can see kind of here behind me, I've got a goal board to this day in my office. I'm getting ready to update it. I've been printing some stuff off today. I want an airplane. I'm working on my pilot's license. Eventually I want a jet. So, small jet, I'm not talking 50, 60, $100 million jet, but something that can get me from point A to point B at a few hundred miles an hour would be nice. So, but that's a crazy goal, right? I mean, how many people, can actually believe that they would own an aircraft one day, or be a pilot. Just to get your pilot's license is somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $12,000. It's not something you could just go out and you get tomorrow. It's something you have to work on, you have to earn, and and there's an investment there. So luckily I'm at this point in life where I've got to develop new goals, because a lot of the goals that I had on the board behind me have came off, and these goals up here are goals I'm still working towards. But I always try to stay a couple steps ahead. So I know that there's a couple goals on here that I'm real close to achieving, and I don't want to have any voids on that board. And one thing I noticed is when I was working on a goal board, one time one of my daughters came in and she decided to create a goal board, and that was awesome. Such a wonderful feeling. And then my other daughter, created a goal board. And but it's very important, because people will laugh at you when you say you want to buy a Ferrari, or you want to live in $1 million house, or something like that, or you want to buy your own island. I mean, these are like far-fetched ideas for most people, right? But I know people that have done all those things. If you go on my Facebook, daily I'm interacting with people that own the cars that one day I'm going to own, that live in places that one day I'm going to live. And I have several friends that are pilots. So it's pretty neat, So first, get your goals written down, surround yourself with people who are at or above where you want to be in life, and understand that not everybody is good in all areas of life. So, you're going to have some mentors probably that are great parents, but maybe not super wealthy. You're going to have other mentors that are super successful, wealthy, successful, but successful could also mean a wonderful parent too. So where I'm going with that is, somebody might have a lot of money, but they might be an awful parent. So don't take all the advice from each person that you meet. Just take a little piece of them. And at the end of the day, you're going to be the, culmination of everybody that you meet in life.
Yeah. So one concept that I've learned is mentorship from afar, right? And Jack Canfield, author of the Success Principles, talked about that, right? It's one of the success principles is to find a mentor, right? It doesn't have to be, like you said, someone that you personally know. I went through the Jack Canfield Success Principles coaching program. I've been through Bob Burg's Entrepreneur Academy, right? There's a lot of great personal development coaches and trainers and teachers out there. Who are some of the ones that you've paid attention to over the years that you can share with our listeners?
Jim Rohn, first and foremost. Jim Rohn is incredible. I found some stuff on Spotify the other day. I actually said, hey Siri, play me some Jim Rohn on Spotify. I gotta make sure my phone doesn't kick in. But if there's Jim Rohn, there's like people made like remix music and stuff with Jim Rohn overlay, him giving, inspirational personal development talks. There's also a lot of good ones on there without the music, where you can get into that material. But he's also all over YouTube, So Jim Rohn, first and foremost. Zig Ziglar, I listen to a lot of Zig Ziglar. And Dale Calvert was probably my first mentor. I started out in network marketing. I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a lot of time, and actually was able to kind of help pay a lot of my college expenses. You have other expenses. Either most people have to work a job while they're in college. I had to do that starting out. But one thing that helped me kind of offset my cost was I was in a network marketing company, and I met this gentleman by the name of Dale Calvert, and just really plugged into his content and he's still producing a lot of exceptional content, mostly, around the direct marketing, MLM, network marketing space. I think I've done probably 15 to 20 of those companies over the years. I failed in most of them, but a few of them I did pretty well in. And one of them I set some records in. I was like number 10 out of 68,000 people in the company and achieved the highest rank in less than 90 days, which was a record. And I was the youngest person to achieve that rank. So that's when I started kind of, feeling like the a taste of success. That company flew me down to Destin Beach, Florida, where now I travel to frequently. And they flew me first class. It was the first time I ever flew first class. And when I got there, a limousine picked me up, took me to the hotel, and the guy gave me his card. He said, "I'll be your driver for the week. Anytime you need me, just here's my number, call me." And we go to the home office, and the home office on this big long table in their boardroom are all these keys. There's a Ferrari key, there's, a Porsche key, there's a bunch of different exotic cars out in the parking lot, and the keys are laid on the table. And I kind of was reading between the lines what was going to go down here. And so the president of the company, he said, "This week, of course, each of you have your own limousine and driver, but I want you to kind of experience something at the next level." And so he said, "On the table here in front of you are the keys to my private car collection. And I'd like for each of you to grab the key of the car you'd like to drive and hopefully share that car with the others in the room." So I lunged forward, I grabbed the Ferrari key, and, I was off to driving a red Ferrari 360 Modena coupe with a tan leather. And that's where my, vision kind of came for. I want to be a Ferrari owner. So, Ferraris are amazing vehicles. And if you ever get to drive one, it's a very emotional experience. I drove it. He gave me $100. He said, "Here's $100, go fill it up." And I said, "Well, you're letting me drive it. You don't have to give me any gas money. I'll fill it up for you." And he said, "Well, then just take the $100 anyway." So he was giving everybody, all the money in the cars to drive and stuff. And I went to go fill it up. And that was my first experience. I got in it, drove it to the gas station. And when I pulled into the gas station, like 5 other cars followed me in, and got out, and people started taking pictures of it. So that's why I was saying it was just a huge experience. And this kid and his dad walked up to me, and they said, he said, "Sir," he said, "can I get a picture beside your car?" And I said, "Well, it's not my car." I said, it's my friend's car." I said, "Why don't you hop in the seat and let Dad get a picture of you?" So he got in the seat, and I get emotional every time I tell the story, because that was me. I was that little kid one day. I would see these cars or big homes, and I would daydream even as a child. These are things that people have achieved, and I can achieve them too. So, just hold on to those beliefs that if it's possible for someone, it's possible for you too. And that's what I look forward to, most with having a car collection is, to be able to share those cars with other people. So great experience.
Awesome.
There.
Yeah, great story. I want to go back on something you just said as well, that you went through 15 to 20 different companies and you had a lot of failures, but you had a few successes in there. I want to talk about some of the failures, right? Because failing isn't permanent, right? And most of the time, I believe the acronym for fail is first attempt in learning.
Okay.
Right. So you probably learned a lot through that process. And I want everyone to understand on here, I've had a few failed businesses as well. And when I say fail, it's like I learned so much from that it allowed me to be successful in the future. So failing is an important part of the journey to success, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Something very important to note is, and take it as you will. I think it's good advice for people is if you think you're going to fail at something, you've already failed at it. So every company that I've ever started, I for the most part, felt like I'm going to be successful at it, or I wouldn't have attempted it. Now, there were a couple that I had these lingering negative thoughts in the back of my mind, like, well, I can at least make a little bit of money here. I'm not sure how big this thing's going to be for me. So that was probably like the extent of it. But if you go into something with a negative mindset that this isn't going to work for you, that it's that you're going to fail at it, you've already failed. Just, in my advice, skip over that and find something that you feel you're going to be successful at. And a lot of that has to do, going back to what we just discussed about surrounding yourself with other successful people, because people will pull you up to their level or pull you down to their level. So an analogy I like to share with people is people are like crabs in a bucket. Somebody told me this story once and I was like, wow, it's so incredible. So what do you mean by that? Well, crabs in a bucket. Okay. So if you've ever been to the beach and you pick up the little white crabs that run really fast along the beach and you put them in a bucket, what happens when one of them tries to escape the bucket? The other crabs, they grab onto it, right? And they try to pull it back down into the bucket. Well, people are the same way. So you have to be really cautious who you spend your time with, who you let in your circle. Keep your circle very small. I think the goal is to be a super networker and know a lot of people, make sure a lot of people know of you and know your name, but you don't need to have a lot of close friends. I don't know too many successful people that have a big close friendship type circle. Most most leaders will tell you that leadership is lonely because
Mm-hmm.
we change a lot as leaders, right? And as we're growing and we're working on our disciplines, we're moving from one circle into another circle. So, our networks change, and the people who you're friends with, in high school probably aren't your friends by the time you're 30 or 40 years old, or you have some additional friends, you might still have some friends from high school. I think we all hopefully do, but that circle is going to get smaller and smaller, and your circle overall is going to get smaller and smaller because you're probably, still to this day, I have mentors that don't know who I am. I know who they are because they're super successful, but I take the good parts from each one of them and it helps me, but whenever I see someone driving a Ferrari, or I see someone, living in a big home, or traveling a whole lot, those are things that inspire me, and the message it sends to me is, oh my, I can do this too, or wow, I'm not pushing hard enough. But other people, it has an opposite effect. They see people sharing like a picture of a Ferrari, and they get made fun of. And I think that it's a personal reflection, obviously, on the person, but
Sure.
those people don't have the belief structure. Maybe they don't have the discipline either. And confidence comes from both of those things. I mean, you have to believe in yourself, you have to discipline yourself, and that's where confidence is going to come from. And then some people, they try to make it sound like having pride in work, or pride is a bad word. I think pride is a good word. Being proud of something that you've achieved, or proud of something that you're doing, or providing a service to others, I think is very important.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, getting a Ferrari or an expensive car, that's not really one of my goals, but I do want a nice house on the bay. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what it is that you want, as long as you go for it. We can all hold different values, and we all have different values. And that's a beautiful thing about libertarianism, is that we can all set our own personal goals, as long as our goals doesn't infringe, they don't infringe on the person, property, or natural rights of another person. That is a great lead in to your elected office. Can you talk a little bit about, why you even ran, and and what is a justice of the peace?
Okay, so I just got sworn in actually yesterday for my third 4-year term as a justice of the peace, also known as magistrate. In Kentucky, most counties have a commission, or have a magistrate form of government, but our county has a commissioner form of government. So I'm not in the day-to-day operations. I wanted a position that didn't detract from what I'm doing in business. So, and I kept getting a lot of people to ask me to run for something, and I kind of felt in my gut I needed to step up at some point and run for something, but I kept telling myself, well, that's something for later in life, when I'm kind of tired of business, maybe, if I ever get to that point. But I didn't really envision running, in my 30s or 40s for anything. I want to do it later. But the reason I ran is because I just kind of got tired of everybody asking me to run for something. So, and then somebody in the LP, the Libertarian Party, they reached out to me, someone who I respect greatly, and Ken Molman, you probably know Ken.
Yep,
and
I know
Ken encouraged me to run. He said, why don't you run for county office? He said, this position here, it shouldn't take much time. It's not a paid position or anything. He said, you can charge people, for different things you do, but it's not like there's no salary, there's no benefits. They don't even give me a ky.gov email address. They make me pay for it if I want one. So I'm kind of treated differently than, I guess, the commissioners and the judge exec and other people in our fiscal court. But to answer your question, what is a magistrate or justice of the peace? It's part of the fiscal court, county government here in Kentucky. And there's 2 duties that I can perform if I want to. It's totally optional, which is really cool. But the first duty is I can officiate marriages. So I do have people, coming to me asking me to officiate their marriage, and I do that for them, and I charge a fee for that. I have one fee for like an express package I put together where I just recite some vows and kind of tailor the vows to them, if they want religious or non-religious, are they exchanging rings or not, things like that. And then I have another one for like a full-blown, like huge wedding event, like where maybe it's expected for me to be there the day before, maybe for a rehearsal or something like that. The other duty I can perform, which I chose not to at this time, is to be a notary. So it's a constitutional office in Kentucky. There's not a lot of interest in it, like I said, because it's just like, how many people really want to marry people? But that was something I didn't do it because I wanted to marry people. I just did it because it was asking me to step up to do something, and the LP said it would help them, to help fill that seat. So I ran for it, got elected. The first time, I believe I had to have signatures, and it really opened my eyes to kind of how government works. Like, for instance, I'll give you some intel. Whenever I share this with people that are like not tuned into government, they're like, well, there's no way that's right. Are you sure about that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure about it. I've looked it up. So like, for instance, to run for my position, I have to have 20 signatures of people in my district. Our county is comprised of 3 districts. We're about 30,000 people or so in the county. So I'd like to think there's around 10,000 people in the district. But as a libertarian, you have to have 20 signatures to run for my office. If I chose to run as a Democrat or a Republican, I only had to have 2, and those 2 could be my spouse and myself. So you can kind of see starting out how the tables are kind of lopsided and why we have 2 dominant parties maybe, right? Because the other parties are held down, and it gets worse from there. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I know to run for, I believe it was governor or something, we had to have like 15,000 signatures, and I think Democrats, Republicans only had to have a handful, similar to my office. So,
yeah, well, that
crazy, right?
getting 20 signatures, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is 10 times the amount that Republicans and Democrats have to get. Where's a free and equal ballot access? There isn't. If you've got to collect 10 times the amount as your opponents, in a way, I look at signature gathering as a benefit because you're getting your name out there. But at the same time, if you have to collect 20, so should they.
Yeah,
it needs to
should be the same rules for everybody, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing too that really opened my eyes is, is at the LP, we pay for our primary election, so the primaries, we self-fund that as a party. Democrats and Republicans, the taxpayers fund their primary. Why is that? Why are we using taxpayer money to fund a political party's primary where they select their own candidates for office? It makes no sense to me. And then the other thing too that irks me is, straight party voting. I'm not a fan of straight party ticket voting options. I wish we had ranked choice voting. Maybe we'll get there. I know some states are getting there for different elections. And then the other thing, they put it like on, is it on your tax returns or something? You could donate money, I believe, to the Democrat or Republican Party, but there's not an option for Libertarian. So there's just a lot of things like that we're not treated fairly, and that's why we just have primarily is it called a duopoly maybe 2 parties.
Yep. Yeah, they rig the system for themselves is what's happening. So we're fighting an uphill battle, but we have to fight it, right? Absolutely. We have, there's no other options. I don't know how it is in your area, but in my area, it seems like they increase property taxes every single year. They're increasing property taxes. They're trying to get new taxes passed through the ballot, right? So they're just basically stealing more money.
Yeah. And I think rising taxation is a sign of failed government. I think if we had a successful government, that our taxes would go down each year. A fight that we really need to have is, why are we allowing government to tax us annually on our property, and property, not just real estate, but on our automobiles, on, boats, recreational vehicles, different things like that. Why do we pay an annual tax every year on something that was purchased with after-tax dollars? It makes no sense. When does that party kick off where we attempt to stop that? Because it's wrong. I mean, there should be a one-time tax. If they're going to tax anything, I understand. I mean, we have to have taxes at this point, but do they have to be 60%, 60 cents on the dollar? When you add up all the taxes that you're taxed, I think somebody says it's like around 60 cents out of the dollar is now taxes versus, years ago, it was less than a nickel. So taxes are a big rub for me. That's another reason that a lot of people ask me to run for office. Is I was a plaintiff in a class action lawsuit against one of our special taxing districts who was taxing wrongfully in our county, and I kind of circulated the information about that and did the research and worked with local media to get the word out that hey, something's not right here. We're paying in a whole lot more, like multiples of what we should be paying in. At the end of the day, we had a lawsuit about it. We won our lawsuit, and then they appealed. Their appeal was granted. They won on appeal, and then our appeal was denied. So the judge basically opined and said that yes, the plaintiffs are correct. However, if we were to decide in their favor ultimately, that it would close a lot of these special taxing districts because they wouldn't have the funding, nowhere near their current level today. So
isn't that the point?
I feel like it was still a success. Sorry, what was that?
Isn't that the point though, is to shut it down, right? But the judge said we can't rule in your favor because it would shut it down.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends, right? So there is a need, I mean, for different special taxing districts, really for all of them, but a lot of it should be volunteer, or it should be something like where you pay like for a service. Like I think, fire protection, for instance, I think would work great as a subscription model. The library was actually the special taxing district that we sued for that. The library used to be voluntary. It used to be a volunteer group, and they ran out of funding. So then they turned to government to use taxpayer funding to survive. And every year, they tax us now on our property, real estate and personal and tangible property, automobiles, etc. There's also different bills that we pay, utility bills that have taxes on there for different government entities. So it's not just paid through property taxes. They're actually getting taxes through multiple multiple avenues. But we didn't sue the library to try to shut the library down, but the library should be how it was started, where people who are fans of the library, in our case, they had a group called Friends of the Library. They should have funded the library, so that's that. but that's where a lot of it originated. And people said, well, you would make a great judge executive, or, a commissioner, county commissioner, or city commissioner, because you don't mind to put your neck on the line. You don't mind to tell people what they need to hear and speak the truth. And that's all I was doing. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but it was definitely, they were hurting people, and people would ask me about it. They said, well, how are they able to do this? And I said, well, they're actually not allowed to do that. Well, then how are they getting by with it? And then, at the end of the day, we had a lawyer that said, well, hey, we'll represent you if you can get a few others. And we, like I said, we were successful in that, but then they won on appeal. There's still long-term effects of that lawsuit that we feel today. I feel that not just that special taxing district, but all the others are very cautious now how they calculate their tax rate each year because of that lawsuit. And there's some that are still doing it incorrectly, in my opinion. The law, there's like a little loophole in the law, and I don't want to spend much time on it because it's a really in-depth discussion, but I'm happy to share it with people. And I'm sure that it's probably, if anybody wants to reach out to me privately, I'm happy to go in depth on it, but it's probably affecting people in other states too, I would imagine. And it has to do with a balancing act kind of between the different classes of property and averaging them together to get a certain rate versus calculating the rate independently based on the type of property. I know it's kind of complex, but I could break it down in a 10-minute phone call where someone kind of gets the gist of it. There's also a wonderful PowerPoint that a very conservative politician put together in Northern Kentucky that I'm able to share with people to kind of educate them on that issue. But property taxation, golly, man, let people own their property, right? We work our whole life. We pay all these taxes, lots of different sales taxes, income taxes, taxes on everything. And, if you're able to be successful enough to save up enough money or to get into the seat of home ownership, let that be a success for people. Let that be a reward for people to be good, productive citizens in society. Let them own things, but as long as we're having to pay a tax on something, we're a renter. We're just a tenant. Someone else truly owns it at the end of the day, because if you don't pay that tax, people in guns and suits will show up, and they'll remove you from that property that you thought you owned. So taxes at some point, I'd love to see, in our lifetime go away.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about real estate for a little bit. I know we're running short on time here, but what would you recommend for someone who's looking to get involved in real estate, and why? Why would they want to?
Okay, well, first, do you want to be an entrepreneur? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you probably want to be an entrepreneur for time freedom. The money's nice, but eventually you get to the point where you bought everything that you want, and you have to have something bigger than just the money. And I understand the money is a very big thing. It was like paramount for me because I didn't have a whole lot growing up. There were all these things I wanted. But as you start acquiring things, and as they're things that were once, say, on a goal board, like the one behind me, when you acquire them, you're not going to be as happy as you think you are. Because, like, for instance, I purchased 3 brand new Escalades. That was one of my goals. When I started out, I wanted a brand new Chevrolet Tahoe. I was able to purchase that. And then after that, I wanted an Escalade. Well, I just sold my 3rd brand new Escalade. And the reason I sold it is I had an opportunity to make a profit because, the pandemic stuff, right? So I went up in value and I was able to unload it. So I sold it. And I have a brand new truck too. And I drive the truck mostly anyway. I mean, the Escalade, I use it quite a bit in my business, but I had the opportunity to sell it and collect the story. So the story was much more value to me than the vehicle. And the story being, hey, how many times in our lifetime are we going to be able to buy a brand new vehicle, drive it for a year and sell it for more than we paid for it? Probably never again. I hope never again. Right. So that story is very important, but I wasn't like on top of the world when I bought my Escalade, the first one, because I'd driven it 1,000 times in my mind. And it's going to be the same way, I know, with the Ferrari or any other car I buy, because I've already driven it 1,000 times. It's just something that you collect. So you have to have something much, much bigger than just the money that you're working towards. So real estate, back to real estate. So real estate is something you can get into and you can make a lot of money with. Super wealthy people own real estate. It's a fact. You can Google it. It's a huge percentage. Most successful wealthy people own real estate, and they don't just own their home. They own other pieces of real estate. They own assets that produce income for them. And on the Escalade, shut my door for a second. On the Escalade, is that quiet? I don't know if you're picking up some background noise.
No, you're good.
Okay, great. So the Escalade, I bought some assets that allowed me to purchase the Escalade. So it wasn't that I went out here and worked my butt off and made some money to go buy an Escalade. I actually financed the Escalade, because I got, I think at the time, like 1.9 or 3.9% or something silly. So I can't go to a bank and borrow money that cheap, and I'm borrowing money all the time to buy real estate. So I usually finance the vehicle if the rate's right. So I financed it, but my payment, I think the first one was like $1,500 or $1,800 a month or something, which is, a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money, right? To pay for a vehicle. There's some vehicles that cost, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars a month, but Escalade, $1,500, $1,800 a month. That's a big payment for, somebody young starting out in Kentucky. Okay. It's a whole lot of money. But what I did is I bought 4 houses, and I was able to purchase 4 houses and renovate them, fix them up. And basically the rent money off of those 4 homes offset entirely the Escalade payment. So that was my plan of action. I could have went out and spent $100 and some thousand on a vehicle, but then I would have spent that $100,000. With real estate, you can go out and you can invest that $100,000 right into like income producing real estate, and then you have this residual income stream, and that residual income stream is what paid the payment. So I like real estate as a vehicle like that, to be able to do things like that. Also, real estate, you can go out, you can improve it, right? So you have some control there. It's very important that you can control your investment. I'm not a fan of the stock market. I feel like you have zero control of the stock market. Same thing with cryptocurrency, and I'll catch some flack on that, but I don't hold any cryptocurrency either. I do own, let me back up, I own a few shares of stock, very, very, very few shares. Just a friend once upon a time, many years ago, said, maybe you should buy this one stock. And it's a common everyday stock. And I bought some, and I've held on to it, and it's thrown off dividends, which is pretty neat, but hasn't made a lot of money, but it's still there somewhere in an account somewhere. So my main investment of choice is real estate. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, that means you're going to sell something, a product or a service or both. And if you're going to sell something, why wouldn't you want to sell something that's going to make you the most money per hour? So I don't know too many things you can go out and spend a few hours and make $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 on. Yep. Most things, if you're going to make thousands of dollars on, you're going to have to put in a whole lot of time. With real estate.
Let's step back 1 second. Okay. So you started your career selling real estate. Is that correct?
No. So I've done a lot of different things. Okay. When I was in high school, I was a DJ. I owned a paintball field. And then we went on and we did like target shoots at festivals. I charged $1 for 5 paintball shots. Went over really well, made really good money, a very young age. And then in college, I got into building websites, and I built a website. I sold like 28,000 accounts on it at $19.95 a month, not all active at the same time, but I made like almost $500,000 in my early 20s on a website I built. And I built websites for others too, but this one guy came to me, he had this wonderful idea. He said, I don't want a penny of it. He said, if you build it, I've got the people that can use it, and I'll make my money through them using the software. So I built this website. It was kind of a partnership, but not really partnership in the sense that it was his idea, but I brought it to life. And like I said, he made gobs of money because of what the software did for him and his business. Okay, with the people in his business that chose to use it. But that website, it was short-lived, so the money came in like real quick and then like went way down. And but it allowed me to buy some real estate. So that's how I got into real estate. So I had a CPA at the time, and I asked him, I said, what should I do with this money? And he said, well, you want to hold back, a lot of it for taxes. And I said, well, how much do I need to hold back? And he told me, and I was like, golly, that's a whole lot of money. I think it was like $130-some thousand in taxes or something I had to pay at like 21 or 2 years old or something. So it was a whole lot, how many people pay 6 figures in taxes, which I had it. It wasn't, I had it because the business was successful, but then the following year, the business wasn't what it was. Right. So, but luckily I had invested some of that money and bought a couple duplexes, and I financed them. I wasn't able to pay for them, I don't think, in full. I know that I had like liens on them, and one of them, like it was weird. Like they let me like take the equity out of one, I guess, from where I put down the money, the down payment. They let me borrow that and work as a down payment on the second one. So that opened the door to leverage. And I saw how you could begin to leverage real estate, which is what, how I've gotten to almost 100 properties today, is to be able to recycle that same money. It's not that I just have tons of money and I go out here and buy real estate. I borrow millions of dollars. I'm millions of dollars in debt, but I'm millions of dollars ahead of that too, so like if I was to pay off everything and the debt would take care of itself, there'd be plenty of money left over. But it's the beauty of real estate is leverage. Okay. And if I was to start it over again, I would have gotten my real estate license first instead of what, kind of at the tail, 20 years later, 15 years later. So if you're wanting to get into real estate, I'd recommend start with a real estate license, find a mentor, someone in your local area, ideally that's successful as a real estate agent and or broker, and kind of come in under their wing and let them teach you the ropes, and start out with a license, because there's 2 trains of thought on it. A lot of real estate investors try to talk people out of getting their license because of liabilities and disclosures and things like that. if you're an honest person, you shouldn't have a problem disclosing that you're an agent to someone. And what I found is that when I disclose that I'm an agent, I'm buying your property from you, I feel that kind of elevates the conversation a bit, because I'm able to talk, I'm knowledgeable about it. Okay.
Sure.
So when we're discussing it, and many times I buy a property, for pennies on the dollar, but I still tell the person, I say, well, I can list your property, and I can sell it for this price, or I can buy it today for this lower price. The price today, it's a price, the condition that it's in, you just shut the door behind you. I'd like for you to clean it up a little bit or broom sweep it or something if you could, but if not, you just close the door behind you, and that's the deal. This other price is going to make you a whole lot more money. You're going to get a whole lot higher price for your property, but we're going to have to parade multiple people most likely through your property. At the end of the day, you're probably going to have to a laundry list of things you're going to have to repair in order so they can get financing or appease their lender or their spouse to let them purchase the property. Everybody wants a bunch of things fixed, it seems like, and which means you're going to probably have to fix stuff, which means you're probably going to have money to fix stuff. Not everybody has a slush fund of money to fix stuff. So there's this segment of people that just want to convert their real estate to cash. And that tends to be kind of the segment that I work in, because usually it's properties that need a lot of repairs. Today very few people want to work, it seems like, right? So that's one thing. Like, people bring me a property and it needs a whole lot of work today. Maybe I don't want to do all that work, but now I have a network of people I can help them sell that property to in its current condition, that are going to improve it. So I just try to explain to people, if you want to do the work, you're going to be paid for it. You're going to make more money when you go to sell the property. But if you just need to sell it like it is today, or you need to sell it today, then, I can give you a price for that too. So it's helped me tremendously in that regard, being more knowledgeable about real estate and in having the tools that are necessary for success. And by tools, what I mean is like open access to PVAs, property value administrator offices in the area. So I can pull up details about someone's home that the average taxpayer cannot, which I think is wrong, by the way. I believe that PVAs should be open. You shouldn't have to buy a subscription or go somewhere to an office to get the data. I feel like it's our data, and we shouldn't be charged for it. At least in Kentucky anyway, most of them, they charge you for that access. So that access, I still pay for it, but it's through an association at a discounted rate. So I've gained access now to the PVA databases in the area where I buy real estate. So that helps me be a better investor. Also continual education, so there's certain classes that are required each year now as an agent. And I try to choose, like some of the classes we get to choose, we have to take like a law class, but we can also choose an elective class. So I try to choose elective classes that I haven't went through before, so I can learn new content. And when you go to these classes, you're going to meet other agents, right? So you're networking, you're building your circle, that networking circle bigger. So I just encourage everybody, if you're wanting to get into real estate, start with a license, but understand that being a real estate agent and or a broker is basically a job. That's not why I got into it. To create a job, I got into it to be able to help people get started, to be better investors. Most of my closest friends today are real estate investors, some of which I've met through either the network marketing space and or through the real estate space. So real estate, man, it's awesome. It's where I would start.
So as a licensed real estate agent, are you able to you're able to represent yourself in these transactions, correct?
It probably depends on like the jurisdiction, right? So the state in Kentucky, and I'm a broker now, so I'm able to recruit agents. So I can that was my whole goal from day one. I never wanted to be an agent. I wanted to be a broker. I wanted to be able to learn the business well enough where I could teach it to other people. And nobody really teaches it how I teach it. A lot of the brokers here, they still have brick and mortar. They expect their agents to come in and work out of an office or to do phone duty, things like that. My brokerage is virtual. So all of our tools are online. I want my agents, doing this for time freedom. I want them to be able to work from home where their family or their friends are. I want them to be able to travel and do this business. I don't want them to be tied down to a physical location. So I kind of teach things differently. I built a different real estate brokerage here in Kentucky. But to answer your question, yes, you can represent yourself when you sell a property. You can represent yourself when you purchase a property, at least in Kentucky. And also in Kentucky, we're allowed to do dual agency where you can represent both the buyer and the seller on a property.
Gotcha. Okay. So then if you purchase a property yourself, you're actually saving the commissions, right, for hiring another agent.
Well, the commissions are paid out. So, say the commission, is whatever it is, half of it usually goes to the buyer's agent and the other half goes to the listing agent. So yes, whenever you buy a property, one way to look at it, or how I look at it, is each time I buy a property that's listed on the MLS, the multiple listing service, I receive a rebate. I feel like it's a rebate. It's not a rebate, but it's a commission, but to me, it's a rebate. And then the same thing whenever I sell the property. Well, I'm my own broker now, so I don't have to split with a broker anymore. So now I really just have to pay like half a commission.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Yeah, that's a lot of great information. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
And I'm sure the people listening appreciate it as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on? I know we're coming up on an hour.
Just be an entrepreneur. Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff. I think that's kind of the core philosophy here that we all agree on. And, live free, try to inspire, other people to change their party affiliation to Libertarian or Independent or something other than the duopoly. And let's try to get other parties maybe established too. I mean, I'm not saying that we should just have 3 or 4 parties. I mean, I'd like to see there be more parties than even 3 or 4 parties if we can get to that point. And I'm saying like larger parties where each one has a larger share than, what we have today. So yeah, politics, pay attention to politics. I feel like most people are tuned out. They feel like they're helpless. There's nothing that you can do to change things. And there's always something you can do. And one way to look at it is, say that you start paying attention to something, say you start going to a local city or county meeting, something that you're interested in, maybe they're trying to enact a local ordinance that you disagree with, which seems to be the case a lot. Then, and you go there and you listen, you meet other people of like mind. We'll say that 2 of you kind of team up, and you start sharing notes. Well, now that effort just doubled, and then when you go from 2 to 4, it doubled again. And that's I think why, the network marketer in me is coming out, why I was gravitated towards network marketing early on when I didn't have, anything but a lot of time, is because I saw that I could go out and I could find someone who, was like mine, like me. And then together we could find other people, and those people could find people, and those people could find people. And eventually we'd have a whole lot of people that agree on something and are willing to make a change on something. So, so the first step, tune in to local politics and even state politics. I feel like those are 2 things that we can address, that we do have some power over as individuals, and that we can change.
I feel that too many people are focused on federal politics where they cannot have an impact whatsoever. And where you can always have an impact is the local level. So that's really great advice. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. I have one final question that I ask all of my guests. In your own words, what do you consider to be
telling people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear, being a good influence, mostly positive, but there's, some things you have to talk about that are negative, as leaders too, right? Situations have to be addressed, things like that. So I think, leadership is being a role model, giving back, but mostly, teaching and telling people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear, because that's what most of our friends are going to do the opposite. Our family members are going to do the opposite. When people who are close to us try to talk us out of things, it's not because they're trying to hurt us, it's because they're trying to protect us. So we need to realize that they're not, always a crab in the bucket trying to pull us down. They just don't want to see us get hurt because they love and they care about us. So it's very important that we understand that why people try to talk us out of things sometime is not because maybe it's not for the reason that we initially think it's really something deeper, because they love and care about us and they're trying to protect us. They mean well. But that's, don't let people talk you out of things. Let people talk you into things, I guess. And make sure you're around good people, right? They're talking into good things.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why I had you on is because I obviously we're friends on Facebook and I follow you there. Is that a good place to reach you, or do you have any other avenues?
I'm on Facebook under Shannon Dennison, also on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube, and maybe 1 or 2 others. So pretty easy to find me. If you have any questions in real estate, libertarianism, entrepreneurship, I would love to speak with you and help you out, because I've had a lot of help in my life. And thank goodness people told me yes when I had questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shannon, and I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for watching this episode of Libertarian Leadership Academy podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel or to Spotify, any of the other podcasts services that we are on. Make sure notifications are on so you get updated interviews. We've got a lot of great interviews lined up this year, especially. So we're going to be focused, like I said in the beginning, on entrepreneurship, personal development, and how it equates to libertarianism. So make sure you're signed up for those updates, and also support our sponsor, Packcrest Botanicals. That's packcrestbotanicals.com, discount code LLA. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.